The fishing boat Ocean Dream moved slowly across the quiet ocean. The sky was gray, and a light fog hung over the water. For 21 days, Captain Yoon and her crew had searched these waters for fish, but their nets remained nearly empty. Money was running out, and hope was fading with each passing day. Captain Yoon stood on the deck, looking out at the endless water. She was 45 years old with weather-beaten skin and eyes that had seen many storms. This trip was supposed to save their small fishing business, but instead, it might be their last. "Another empty net," said Tai, the ship's engineer. He wiped grease from his hands with an old rag. Ta had been fixing boats since he was a teenager, and the Ocean Dream was like his child. He knew every pipe, wire, and bolt on the aging vessel. Captain Yoon nodded. "We'll try the deeper waters tomorrow. There must be fish somewhere in this empty ocean." Below deck, Jin sat in the small room that housed the sonar equipment. She was the youngest of the 3 experienced crew members, with a special talent for finding fish where others could not. Her fingers tapped against the edge of her desk as she watched the green lines move across the screen. Nothing interesting had appeared for days. Sung, the newest crew member, brought her a cup of hot tea. At just 22, this was his first deep-sea expedition. "Any luck?" he asked. Jin shook her head. "Nothing. Just empty." She stopped suddenly, her eyes fixed on the screen. "Wait, there's something down there." The sonar showed a large shape, much bigger than any school of fish. It sat at a depth that seemed impossible, nearly 3,000 meters below them. "What is it?" Sung asked, leaning closer. "I don't know." Jin adjusted the settings, trying to get a clearer image. "It's not moving like a whale or a submarine." She reached for the ship's intercom. "Captain, you need to see this." Minutes later, Captain Yoon and Tai crowded into the small room, staring at the strange shape on the screen. "Could it be a sunken ship?" Ta suggested. Jin shook her head. "No, look at these readings. It's giving off some kind of energy. Very faint, but it's there." Captain Yoon studied the screen with narrowed eyes. After 30 years at sea, she thought she had seen everything the ocean could offer. She was wrong. "How far down did you say it was?" she asked. "Almost 3,000 meters, Jin replied. "Too deep for our normal equipment." Ta scratched his chin thoughtfully. "We could modify the deep water camera. Add some lights, extend the cable." "That would use a lot of our remaining fuel," Captain Yoon said. The 4 of them looked at each other. They all knew their situation. 3 weeks with barely enough fish to cover the cost of the trip. They needed a miracle, or they would return home with empty pockets and broken dreams. "What if it's a treasure ship?" Sung said hopefully. "Or something valuable." Captain Yoon made her decision. "Prepare the camera. Ta. Jin, keep monitoring that signal. Sung, help Ta with whatever he needs." For the next 6 hours, they worked to modify their equipment. Ta connected extra lights to the underwater camera and joined additional lengths of cable together. Sung helped carry tools and hold things in place as Ta worked. Jin never left her sonar station, watching the mysterious object that remained motionless in the deep. Night fell, but no one on the Ocean Dream thought about sleep. By midnight, they were ready to lower the camera into the water. 3,000 meters is going to take time, Ta warned as the winch began to lower the camera. "At least an hour before we see anything." They gathered around the small monitor that showed the camera feed. At first, there was nothing but darkness beyond the reach of the lights. The minutes crawled by as the depth counter slowly increased. 1,000 meters, Jin announced. 2,000 meters. The tension grew as the camera descended deeper. The pressure at this depth was enormous, and they all knew their modified equipment might fail at any moment. 2,900 meters, Jin said. "We're getting close." Suddenly, the camera's lights reflected off something below. Something smooth and metallic. "There." Some pointed at the screen. "What is that?" As the camera continued to descend, More of the object came into view. It was enormous, at least the size of a naval destroyer, but with a shape unlike any ship they had ever seen. Its surface was covered in strange patterns that seemed to glow faintly. "Is it a submarine?" Ta suggested, but his voice lacked conviction. "No submarine ever built looks like that," Captain Yoon said quietly. The camera showed more details as they maneuvered it around the object. Part of the strange vessel was trapped under massive underwater landslides. Rocks and sediment covered what appeared to be engines or propulsion systems. "Look at the design," Jin whispered. "Those aren't materials we use. That's not human construction." They all fell silent as the truth sank in. The object on their screen was not made by human hands. Its curves and angles followed patterns that seemed both beautiful and wrong at the same time. Materials that shouldn't exist at this depth without crushing shimmered in the camera's lights. "That's not from Earth," Sung finally said, his voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's engines. Captain Yoon leaned closer to the screen. After a life at sea, after believing she had seen everything the ocean could offer, she now faced something beyond imagination. Their failed fishing expedition had suddenly turned into the greatest discovery in human history. "We need to try to make contact," she said, her mind racing with possibilities. "Jin, check for any signals. Tai, can we send any kind of message to it?" As the crew of the Ocean Dream began working with renewed energy, a faint light flickered to life inside the alien vessel, as if responding to their presence. Something ancient and powerful was waking up in the abyss, something that would change their lives and the world forever. For hours after their discovery, the crew of the Ocean Dream watched the strange vessel on their camera feed. No one wanted to sleep. The massive ship sat trapped under tons of rock and mud at the bottom of the ocean. "It can't be empty," Jin said, her eyes fixed on the small screen. "Something made those lights turn on when we got close." Captain Yoon nodded. She had contacted no one on land about their discovery. Their radio could reach the Coast Guard, but what would she say? That they had found an alien ship. They would think the crew had gone crazy from too many days at sea. "Look," Sung pointed at the screen. A new light had appeared on the trapped vessel. It blinked 3 times, then stopped. After a moment, it blinked 3 times again. "It's trying to communicate," Ta said. Jin quickly grabbed a flashlight. "We need to respond." She pointed the beam at the camera and blinked it 3 times. The light on the alien ship blinked twice. It understood. Sung's voice rose with excitement. Over the next few hours, they developed a simple system of communication. 3 blinks meant yes. 2 blinks meant no. They created patterns for basic concepts and questions. It was slow and difficult, but it worked. They learned that the ship was called the Dawn Star. It carried beings from a place beyond their understanding. These beings had been in a battle with enemies and their ship was damaged. They had hidden in Earth's oceans to repair their vessel, but became trapped when underwater landslides covered their engines. "How many are on board?" Captain Yoon asked through light signals. The answer came back. 12 crew members, still alive but running out of power. Morning came, and the 4 humans gathered on deck to discuss what they had learned. The fog had lifted, and the sun shone on the empty ocean around them. No other ships were visible. They were alone with their incredible secret. "We have to help them," Sung said. The young man had not slept, but his eyes were bright with excitement. "How?" Jin asked. "They're 3,000 meters down. We can't reach them." Ta had been quiet, thinking deeply. Now he spoke. "We don't need to reach them. We just need to move the rocks trapping their ship." "And how do we move thousands of tons of rock?" Captain Yoon asked. Ta smiled. "We're fishermen. We know the ocean better than anyone. We can use our trawling nets, our buoys, and the ocean itself." He explained his plan. They would use their nets and buoys to create a system that would change the water pressure around the ship. The changing pressure would help loosen the rocks. The aliens could then use whatever power they had left to free themselves. It was a crazy plan. It might not work, But they had nothing to lose. They sent light signals to explain the plan to the aliens. After many hours of slow communication, the aliens understood and agreed to help. The work began immediately. Tai and Sung prepared the equipment while Jin maintained contact with the aliens. Captain Yoon positioned the Ocean Dream carefully above the trapped vessel. "We'll only get one chance at this," Ta said as he checked the modified nets. "If it fails, we won't have enough fuel to try again." The first day was spent setting up the equipment. They lowered special buoys that could withstand the extreme depth. The aliens directed them through light signals, showing exactly where each buoy needed to go. By nightfall, the crew was exhausted but hopeful. On the second day, they began the delicate process of creating pressure changes in the water. Ta had connected the buoys to a system of ropes and pulleys on the Ocean Dream. By raising and lowering them in a specific pattern, they could create small currents that would move the sediment around the alien ship. "Like loosening a cork in a bottle," Tai explained. Little by little. The work was slow and difficult. The deep ocean fought against them. Twice, ropes snapped from the strain, and Ta had to splice them back together with tired hands. The fuel gauge on the Ocean Dream dropped lower each hour. By the evening of the second day, their food supplies were running low. They had packed for a 3-week trip, not expecting to spend days hovering in one spot using so much fuel and energy. "We can last one more day," Captain Yoon said, looking at their supplies. "After that, we must return to land." That night, a storm hit. Rain pounded the deck, and waves rocked the small fishing boat. The crew worked through the night, fighting to keep their equipment from being damaged. No one slept. Their muscles ached, and their hands were raw from working with the ropes. Dawn broke on the third day with clearing skies. The crew, exhausted and wet, gathered to check their progress. "The aliens report movement," Jin said after checking the light signals. "The rocks are shifting." This gave them new energy. All day they worked, adjusting the buoys, creating the pressure differentials that Tai had calculated. The ship's fuel gauge dropped into the red zone. They would barely have enough to make it back to shore. As the sun began to set on the third day, Jin shouted from the communication station. "Movement! They're reporting major movement." They rushed to the sonar screen. The large shape was shifting, rising slightly from the ocean floor. "It's working," Sung shouted. For the next 2 hours, they watched as the alien vessel slowly freed itself from the ocean floor. The sonar showed it rising, meter by meter, through the deep water. "They're coming up," Captain Yoon said quietly. "What happens when they reach the surface?" No one had an answer. The ship's communication screen, which they had used to send text messages through their basic light code, suddenly lit up with clear words in perfect Korean. "Humans accomplished what our advanced civilization could not. We are in your debt." The crew stared at the screen in amazement. "They learned our language," Jin whispered. "In just 3 days." The sonar showed the alien ship rising faster now, moving toward the surface about a kilometer from their position. Night had fallen, and the ocean was dark. "Should we be afraid?" Sung asked, voicing what they all felt. Captain Yoon looked at her small crew, the engineer who had designed an impossible rescue, the sonar operator who had established first contact, and the young man who had never lost hope. "They asked for help, and we gave it," she said. "That's what humans do." The Ocean Dream's engines rumbled to life as Captain Yoon steered toward the location where the alien ship would surface. The stars shone brightly above them, and the ocean was calm after the storm. In minutes, they would come face to face with beings from another world. And nothing on Earth would ever be the same again. The Ocean Dream floated beside the massive alien ship as it broke the surface of the water. Water cascaded off its sides like waterfalls. The ship was huge, at least 10 times bigger than the largest human battleship. Its surface glowed with soft blue and green lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. Captain Yoon and her crew watched in amazement. For a moment, they were the only humans to witness this historic event. Then Jin's radio crackled to life. Unidentified vessel. This is the U.S. Lincoln. We are approaching your position. Please identify yourself. Within hours, the quiet ocean became crowded with ships. Military vessels from 5 countries surrounded the alien ship. Helicopters circled overhead. Fighter jets roared across the sky in formation. News spread across the world faster than Captain Yoon could have imagined. Satellite images of the alien ship appeared on every television channel and website. People gathered in streets, looking at their phones and pointing to the sky. Some celebrated. Some prayed. Many were afraid. On the Ocean Dream, the crew watched as their small fishing boat was suddenly at the center of world-changing events. "What happens now?" Sung asked, his voice small against the noise of helicopter rotors. Before anyone could answer, a section of the alien ship's hull slid open. Light poured out from inside. The military vessels immediately moved into defensive positions, weapons trained on the opening. "They're coming out," Jin whispered. A platform extended from the ship to the Ocean Dream, creating a bridge between the 2 vessels. 3 tall figures stepped out onto the platform. Captain Yoon gasped. The aliens were beautiful and strange. They stood nearly 7 feet tall, with slender bodies that seemed to glow from within. Their skin shimmered with colors that shifted like the northern lights. They had no hair, but their heads were adorned with what looked like crystal formations. Their eyes were large and silvery, without pupils. The tallest alien raised a hand in greeting and spoke in perfect Korean. "I am Kyo, commander of the Dawn Star. We wish to speak with those who saved us." Military officials quickly ordered Captain Yoon and her crew to return to shore for questioning. But the aliens refused to communicate with anyone except the fishermen who had rescued them. "We trust those who saved us without knowing who we were," Kyo explained. "We will speak only through them." After tense negotiations, a compromise was reached. Captain Yoon and her crew would serve as intermediaries. They were given special clearance and quickly transferred to a United Nations vessel where emergency talks were being organized. The UN ship was much larger than the Ocean Dream. Important-looking people in suits and uniforms hurried through its corridors. Captain Yoon and her crew, still in their worn fishing clothes, felt out of place. "They want us to go into the meeting room," a young translator told them. "World leaders are connecting by video. The aliens, they call themselves the Lyridon, will be there soon." The meeting room was large, with a long table and many screens showing faces of presidents and prime ministers. Military generals stood along the walls. Everyone fell silent when Captain Yoon and her crew entered. A tall man in a blue UN uniform approached them. "I'm Admiral Park. Thank you for coming. This is unprecedented. We need your help." Before Captain Yoon could respond, the room's doors opened again. The 3 Lyridon entered, ducking slightly to fit through the human-sized doorway. Their bioluminescent skin cast a soft glow around them. Kyo, the Lyridon leader, spoke directly to Captain Yoon. "These humans fear us. Please tell them we come in peace." For the next several hours, Captain Yoon and her crew translated between the Lyridon and Earth's leaders. Though the Lyridon could speak Korean perfectly, they insisted on speaking through the fishermen they trusted. Tai explained the rescue operation to impressed military officials. Jin described how they first made contact. Sung, usually quiet, spoke about how humans and aliens work together to solve a problem. As the talks continued, Kyo revealed more about the Lyridon. "We are scouts from a galactic coalition of peaceful species," Kyo explained while Captain Yoon translated. "Our mission was to map this sector of space, not to make contact. Our protocols forbid interfering with developing worlds." "Then why did you hide in our ocean?" the general demanded. Kyo's skin darkened slightly, which they learned was a sign of sadness. "We were attacked by the Voidswarm Empire. Our ship was damaged. We needed to hide and repair." The room grew tense as Kyo explained about the Voidswarm, a conquering force that consumed the resources of each planet they found. They had been at war with the Galactic Coalition for many years. "We thought we lost them," Kyo said. "But I must warn you now. The Void Swarm has detected our emergence. Our sensors indicate they are already on their way to your planet." The room erupted in shouting and questions. How long did Earth have? What weapons did these Void Swarm use? Could Earth defend itself? Kyo's answer silenced everyone. "Your planet has approximately 14 days before they arrive. Your weapons cannot stop them. They have destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours." Captain Yoon watched the fear spread across the faces of world leaders on the screens. In just 3 days, she had gone from a struggling fisherman to the messenger of possible global extinction. "Is there anything we can do?" she asked Kyo. The alien looked at her with those strange silver eyes. "We will help you. The Dawn Star is a battleship, damaged but still powerful. We can fight, but we cannot defeat them alone." That evening, Captain Yoon and her crew were given private quarters on the UN ship. They sat together, trying to process everything that had happened. "1 week ago, we were worried about catching enough fish to pay our bills," Jin said quietly. "Now we're in the middle of an alien invasion." Ta nodded, his hands still stained with engine grease. "Did you see their technology? It's hundreds of years beyond ours." Sung, who had been quiet, finally spoke. "But they still needed us to rescue them. Maybe we have something they don't." A knock at the door interrupted them. Admiral Park entered, looking tired but determined. "Captain Yoon, the UN Security Council has made a decision. Since the Lyridan trust you and your crew, you have been officially appointed as Earth's representatives in this crisis." He handed her a document with official seals. "We need you to work with them to find a way to defend Earth." After the Admiral left, the 4 fishermen looked at each other in silence. They were simple people who knew about fishing nets and ocean currents. Now they were humanity's ambassadors to an advanced alien civilization, with the fate of the planet in their hands. Through the window, they could see the massive shape of the Dawn Star glowing in the night. On its deck, the Lyridan were preparing for battle. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the Void Swarm was coming. The 12 days after the Lyridan's warning passed quickly. Around the world, people prepared for the worst. Some fled to bunkers and caves. Others gathered with family to wait. Many prayed. Captain Yoon and her crew remained aboard the UN ship, working closely with the Lyridan. They learned about space travel, alien weapons, and the history of the Galactic Coalition. The Lyridan, in turn, learned about Earth and its people. "Your species is young but remarkable," Kyo told them one evening. "You have achieved much in a short time." On the 13th day, Kyo invited Captain Yoon and her crew onto the Dawn Star. The inside of the alien ship was breathtaking. Corridors curved in ways that seemed impossible. Lights glowed from within the walls themselves. Strange symbols flowed across screens like living things. "This is our command center," Kyo said, leading them into a large circular room. Other Lyridan worked at stations around the edges. In the center was a 3-dimensional map of Earth and the surrounding space. A red dot appeared at the edge of the map. Then another, and another. "They're here," Kyo said simply. The Voidsworn ships appeared in Earth's orbit exactly 14 days after Kyo's warning. There were 7 of them, each larger than anything humans had ever built. They were dark, angular shapes against the stars, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. From the deck of the Dawn Star, now positioned in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, Captain Yoon and her crew watched the sky. Military ships surrounded them in a protective circle, though everyone knew Earth's weapons would be useless against the invaders. A message from the Void Swarm reached every communication device on Earth simultaneously. It was simple and terrifying. "Surrender the Lyridan rebels. Submit to harvesting. Resistance ensures extinction." World leaders frantically consulted with military commanders. Some wanted to fight. Others suggested surrendering the Lyridan to save humanity. In the confusion, Captain Yoon and her crew were forgotten by most officials, but not by the Lyridan. We will not let your world fall because of us, Kyo said. The Dawn Star will engage the Void Swarm. Captain Yoon shook her head. Your ship is still damaged. You said yourself that you cannot defeat them alone. We have no choice, Kyo replied. We cannot repair in time, and we cannot outrun them. Jin, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. Let me see their attack data. Kyo looked surprised but led Jin to a control panel. These are records of previous Void Swarm engagements. Jin studied the complex patterns on the screen. Tai, Sung, and Captain Yoon gathered around her. Look at this, Jin said after several minutes. Their attack patterns follow predictable algorithms, just like hunting predators in ocean currents. What do you mean? Kyo asked. Jin explained. When hunting in the ocean, predators followed specific patterns. Sharks circled before attacking. Certain fish hunted in formations. As fishermen, they had learned to predict these patterns to know where to place their nets. The Void Swarm moves the same way, Jin said, pointing to the screen. They're powerful, but they're predictable. For the next few hours, the fishermen worked with the Lyridon. They explained techniques they used to catch smart fish that normally avoided nets. They described how ocean currents could be used to trap or redirect schools of fish. They showed how sometimes the smallest boats could catch the largest prey by using the water itself as a weapon. We can apply these principles to space combat, Ta suggested. Use their own patterns against them. Kyo and the other Lyridans seemed skeptical at first. Their battle tactics were based on complex calculations and centuries of space warfare experience. How could simple fishing techniques help? But they had no better options. As the Void Swarm ships began to descend into Earth's atmosphere, the Dawn Star powered up its engines. Captain Yoon and her crew remained on board at Kyo's request. If we are to try your methods, we need you to guide us, the alien commander explained. The Dawn Star rose into the sky, a single ship against 7 massive Void Swarm vessels. Around the world, people watched on screens and held their breath. This was humanity's last hope. The battle began with a flash of energy weapons. The Void Swarm fired first, expecting the Dawn Star to dodge in typical Lyridon fashion. Instead, following Jin's suggestion, the ship dove straight toward the attack, then veered at the last second, like a small fish darting past a shark's jaws. Now, Jin called out, and Kyo gave the command. The Dawn Star fired its weapons not at the Void Swarm ships, but at empty space in front of them. The confused Void Swarm commanders halted their advance, trying to understand this strange tactic. Again, Ta shouted, "Create the net." The Dawn Star fired in rapid succession, creating a pattern of energy disturbances around the Void Swarm ships. Just as fishermen used nets to guide fish into a trap, the Lyridon were using energy weapons to force the Void Swarm into position. They're clustering, just like you said they would, Kyo noted with surprise. Sung, who had been monitoring Earth's weather patterns, spoke up. Now use the storm. Below them, a massive thunderstorm was brewing over the Pacific. Following Sung's suggestion, the Dawn Star positioned itself directly above the storm, then fired its remaining weapons into the clouds. The electricity in the storm amplified the energy blasts, creating a massive electromagnetic pulse that shot upward. The pulse hit 3 Void Swarm ships, temporarily disabling their systems. In that moment of confusion, the Dawn Star attacked with precision, focusing all power on a single enemy vessel. The Void Swarm ship exploded in a flash of light that was visible from Earth's surface. For the first time in known history, a Void Swarm vessel had been destroyed by a single opponent. The remaining Void Swarm ships retreated to a higher orbit, regrouping for another attack. But the pattern had been broken. Their predictable algorithms had failed them against the chaotic human tactics. On the bridge of the Dawn Star, the Lyridon crew worked with renewed energy. Captain Yoon and her fishermen moved between stations, suggesting adjustments based on their understanding of predator behavior. They'll come back more cautiously, Jin predicted, like a shark that's been injured. Then we'll be ready with a different trap, Captain Yoon said. When the Void Swarm attacked again, the Dawn Star was waiting. Using the fishermen's strategies, they lured the enemy ships into Earth's atmosphere, where the drag slowed their movements. They used the planet's magnetic field to disrupt the Void Swarm sensors. They employed every trick that fishermen had developed over centuries to catch creatures smarter and stronger than themselves. By dawn, 3 Void Swarm ships had been destroyed. The others retreated beyond the moon, sending a final message. This world is marked. We will return with the fleet. But for now, Earth had survived. In the quiet aftermath, Kyo approached Captain Yoon on the observation deck of the Dawn Star. The alien's skin glowed with a warm golden light, a sign of respect. They had learned. Humans possess something we lack, Kyo said softly. Adaptive thinking that defies logical progression. Our civilization has advanced technology, but we became predictable. You showed us a new way to fight. Captain Yoon looked out at the blue planet below them. We're just fishermen. We know how to catch things that don't want to be caught. Perhaps, Kyo replied. That is exactly what the galaxy needs. 6 months passed quickly. Earth had changed in ways no one could have imagined before the Lyridon arrived. Cities now had strange new buildings with curved walls that glowed at night. Cars ran on energy that didn't make smoke. Sick people got better with medicines that seemed like magic. But the biggest change was in space. Earth had joined something called the Galactic Concord, an alliance of 23 different worlds. Humans were now part of a much larger community among the stars. Captain Yoon sat by a window in her new apartment in Seoul, looking at the night sky. She still found it hard to believe how much her life had changed. 1 year ago, she had been a struggling fisherman worried about paying bills. Now she was preparing to leave Earth again, this time as an official representative to the Galactic Concord. Her phone rang. It was Jin. Are you packed? Jin asked. The shuttle leaves at dawn. Almost, Captain Yoon replied. Are Ta and Sung ready? Yes. Tai is excited about the engine upgrades on the Dawn Star. Sung is nervous about the ceremony. Tomorrow, the 4 fishermen would officially join the crew of the Dawn Star as Earth's first space officers. The news channels called them heroes. Schools taught children about how they saved Earth. Their faces appeared on posters and screens everywhere. Captain Yoon found it all strange. They had just done what seemed right at the time. Early the next morning, the 4 former fishermen met at the new spaceport outside Seoul. They wore simple blue uniforms with Earth's new space symbol, a circle with a wave inside it, designed to honor their fishing origins. I never thought I'd wear anything but old fishing clothes, Ta said, adjusting his collar. A small crowd had gathered to see them off. Family members, government officials, and ordinary people who wanted to catch a glimpse of the famous fishermen. The shuttle that took them to orbit was built with Lyridon technology, but piloted by a human. This blend of alien and human was now common. Earth scientists worked closely with Lyridon engineers, learning and sharing knowledge. As they left Earth's atmosphere, Sung pressed his face to the window. The young man had never lost his sense of wonder. I still can't believe we're going to space again, he said softly. When they reached orbit, they saw the Dawn Star waiting for them. The alien battleship looked different now. It had been fully repaired and upgraded. New sections built by human engineers connected to the original Lyridon design. The ship that had once been trapped at the bottom of the ocean now shone in the sunlight of space. Kyo met them at the docking bay. The Lyridon commander's skin glowed with blue and green patterns of welcome. My friends, Kyo said, bowing slightly. The Dawn Star has missed you. The 4 humans followed Kyo through the ship. Many things had changed. Human-sized chairs now sat next to the taller Lyridon ones. Signs appeared in both Lyridon symbols and Earth languages. In the dining area, human food was stored next to alien meals. We've made many improvements based on your suggestions, Kyo explained as they walked. The fishing net concept has been applied to our shield systems. The ocean current tactics are now part of our navigation protocols. They reached the bridge, which now had a circular design that humans found more comfortable. Other Lyrian crew members greeted them warmly. Some humans were already there, working at control stations. "Captain Yoon," a voice called. Admiral Park from the United Nations approached with a small box. "Before you depart, Earth wishes to present you with these." He opened the box to reveal 4 golden pins shaped like waves. "These mark you as Earth's first space admirals," he said, placing one on Captain Yoon's uniform. "You will represent humanity in the coming conflict." The ceremony was brief but meaningful. When it was done, Admiral Park and his staff returned to the shuttle, leaving the 4 new space admirals to begin their duties. "The Concorde fleet is assembling near Jupiter," Kyo informed them. "We will join them there before departing for the border regions." As the Dawn Star moved away from Earth, Captain Yoon and her crew took their positions on the bridge. Jin worked at the sensor array, her fishing experience helping her spot patterns in space, just as she once found fish in the deep ocean. Tai helped in engineering, where his practical knowledge improved the ship's systems. Sung assisted with communications, his quick mind helping to translate between species. Captain Yoon stood beside Kyo at the command center, still amazed that she was now helping to lead a battleship among the stars. "We've received new intelligence," Kyo said, bringing up a star map. "The main Void's Worm fleet approaches, 300 ships moving toward Concorde space." The bridge fell quiet. 300 ships. The Dawn Star and Earth had barely survived an encounter with 7. "How many ships do we have?" Captain Yoon asked. 117 from all Concorde worlds," Kyo replied, "plus 42 new vessels built with the hybrid technologies." These new ships were the pride of the Concorde. They combined Lyrian advanced science with human creative thinking. Engineers from both worlds had worked day and night to create vessels that could outthink the predictable but powerful Void Swarm. "Will it be enough?" Jin asked from her station. Kyo's skin flickered with patterns that showed concern. "We cannot know, but we are stronger together than apart." For 3 days, the Dawn Star traveled through the solar system. Captain Yoon still found it hard to believe how fast they moved. Distances that took months for Earth ships to cross passed in hours. When they reached Jupiter, a magnificent sight greeted them. Ships from all Concorde worlds had gathered. Some were small and quick. Others were massive carriers. Each had its own strange and beautiful design, representing the culture that built it. Earth had contributed 5 ships of its own, small vessels with human crews trained by Lyrian teachers. They looked tiny next to the giant alien ships, but they moved with unexpected grace. "The Earth ships have some surprises inside," Ta said with pride. "We put some old fishing boat engines to new use." As the Dawn Star took its place in the formation, a message came from Concorde Command. The fleet would depart for the border regions in 6 hours. The greatest space battle in known history would soon begin. That evening, Captain Yoon called her crew to her quarters. The room was simple, with a few items from her fishing boat, a compass, an old rope, a picture of the ocean dream. "Tomorrow we face something much bigger than ourselves," she said, "just like when we found a strange reading on our sonar." Jin smiled. "We were just trying to find enough fish to pay our bills. And now we're preparing for a space battle," Tai added. Sung, who had grown more confident in the past months, spoke up. "But we're still the same people. We still think like fishermen." Captain Yoon nodded. "That's our strength. The Void Swarm doesn't understand how we think. They don't understand why we would help strangers trapped in the ocean. They don't understand why different species would work together." Through the window, they could see Earth as a small blue dot in the distance, their home, the place they had once thought was the entire universe. The next morning, the Concorde fleet prepared to depart. On the bridge of the Dawn Star, Captain Yoon took her place beside Kyo. The ship hummed with energy as new systems came online. "The main Void Swarm fleet approaches," Kyo announced to the bridge crew. "But our new hybrid technologies merge your human ingenuity with our advancements. We are ready." The stars stretched and blurred as the fleet entered faster than light travel. They were heading toward an uncertain battle, but they were going together. humans and aliens united by common purpose. Captain Yoon looked at her crew, Jin at sensors, Ta monitoring engines, Sung at communications. Once they were simple fishermen struggling to survive. Now they were key strategists in humanity's first interstellar conflict. "Ready to make history again?" she asked. They nodded, gazing at the stars that had once seemed so distant, but now felt like home. As the Dawn Star raced toward the coming battle, Captain Yoon thought about the strange path that had brought them here. It had started with a simple choice to help rather than fear the unknown, to rescue rather than run away, to see strangers as potential friends rather than enemies. Perhaps that was the greatest lesson humans had to teach the galaxy. The end.